At the beginning, as a child, I had a phobia of dogs. I was walking across the road after getting the local paper with my sister, and a dog came up and bit me in the middle of the road. So then, many years later, I actually worked in a community care worker, and I'd work with people that were visually impaired, so they'd have a guide dog, and that was like a Labrador sort of dog. And I'm thinking, okay, I can deal with this, I can cope with that. 4 days after my home was broken into, Teida came into my life. So she was a Staffordshire Terrier, red cattle dog, and she needed a home just as much as I needed a home. She came into my home 4 days after my home was broken into, and basically the owner said if she didn't find a home, she may be put down. So Teida and I bonded instantly.
That's the voice of Danielle Corrie. Today on Living Big Mindfully, we are talking about that special relationship with our pets and how Danielle used the power of words and nature in her healing journey. Danielle is the author of Teida's story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog, a touching account of grief, loss, love, and getting through the dark times. Danielle begins with a bit about her story, being bullied as a child, having anxiety, and overcoming her fear of dogs. And then we move into talking about grief and loss of people, and the loss of our beloved pets, and how looking into the natural world can help us heal. Peppered throughout the conversation, Danielle shares tips, strategies, and touching sage advice. You know, it was so lovely to connect with Danielle. She has a kind spirit and a warm heart, which shines through our conversation, and her beautiful book, Teida's Story, which I highly recommend. And talking about books, remember to download your free ebook, 12 Ways to Care for Your Nervous System, at katechampion.com/books. I am giving you the gift of calm, so go download it and enjoy. As always, I thank you, I support you, and I am here to help you. Okay, here's Danielle. Hello, today I am welcoming Danielle Corrie to the podcast. I'm so excited to see you and connect. How are you today?
I'm well, Kate. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Good. You are welcome. So tell us a little bit about where you're calling in from today.
I'm calling from Sydney, Australia this morning. It's 6:30 in the morning. It's sunrise. So, and I'm always an early riser, so this is a good time for me. Where are you from, Kate?
I'm in the Midwest, so in the United States, kind of in the middle of the country, the Midwest East Coast-ish. Yeah. So Danielle caught my attention because she wrote this. She's an author and a business person, and she has an incredible story. And she wrote this beautiful book, which really focuses on this beautiful story through a dog's eyes, and about kind of life and grief and loss and, these beautiful processes. She has a huge connection with nature, which really resonates with me. So I reached out and actually, I think she that's wrong. I think she actually reached out to me and asked if she could share a little bit about her book and her story and her journey. And so I really welcome you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's lovely to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you and your journey and just share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm a published author from Sydney, Australia, and I wrote the book Teida's Story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog. Teida is my dog, and the book is actually written through her eyes, where she explains about friendship, hope, love, grief and loss, and from when she was a pup to her old senior years. And it explains the connection that she had with me as her owner as well. I got Teida when she was 6 years old, and she did, I'll tell you this, she did pass away, because a lot of people say, is Teida still alive? Well, no, she's not. But she's the one that inspired me to write Teida's story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog.
And I do want to get into the book and the story, because it is a beautiful, heartfelt touching story, and it's lovely. I mean, it really is. And you have such an eye for kind of nature and kind of connection with animals, connection with nature. So how did that develop in you? How did that come about? Have you always had this kind of intuition, this connection? Is it something that you developed?
I've always loved nature from when I was young. Funnily enough, when I was at Mum was a gardener. Her mum was a gardener, so I love gardening. And as a child, I'd actually, you'd have council clean-up. So you see plants in the middle of the road, on the side of the road. So I'd take them home to Mum and say, here, Mum. And she'd say, Danny, what am I going to do with this? And I said, well, it's out in the street. It needs a home. So I brought it home, So and I've always loved getting up early. Dad worked early, and to have breakfast, you always had to get up, say, between 6 and 7 to have breakfast with Dad before he left for work. So I would do that. And so I've always been an early riser, and I've always I have my own garden. Intuitively, way back also, just before I start that, I was afraid of dogs before I had Teida. So I had a phobia of dogs when I was a child, and I was bullied at school. I failed English at school. I suffered anxiety, and I basically couldn't do my exams. I got sick before every exam. So I tried to use nature there. The school had a great fig tree, a Moreton Bay fig tree. And as a little girl, probably 6 or 7 or 8 years old, I'd look at the tree and think, gee, I wish I was in that tree than sitting around at school being bullied. So I just love nature, animals, birds, everything. Yeah, so spiritually, and when I bought my home here, my grandmother passed away, and this is when my spirituality went high, developed more. I was sitting in the backyard, and my grandmother was a champion rose grower, and she passed away. And I looked out the back, and my sister was with me, and she said, buy this house, make the backyard, the back part of the garden, the rose garden. And that's what I did. I saw her vision there. So then I bought the house.
How long ago was that?
Over 20 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So in the story, in Teida's story, you talk about, the dog, through the dog's eyes, kind of being in the backyard and looking at all the minute details, kind of ants and snails and the smelling the earth. Is that the same kind of rose garden that you talk about in the book?
It is the same garden, same area of the garden. The garden's probably changed slightly. Plants die, so you put new ones in, and basically with the cost of living these days, a lot of people grow their own fruit and vegetables and things like that. So I'm trying to make it more self-sufficient for myself, but I still have roses in there, and I'd always have roses in that garden as part of the garden. And I always have, when somebody moves or when somebody passes away or something, I like to get a bit of their garden in my garden and make it, so that's how it develops with plants.
I love that. I mean, how powerful is that symbolism, right? When you get kind of cuttings and things from maybe a loved one's garden or your grandmother's garden, and then you kind of tend them and then put them in your garden. That's beautiful.
I remember when I was young, my grandmother did pass away, and Mum said to me, what did you want? What do you want from her house? And I said, I want her roses. And knowing that we can't just dig roses out and plant them, because the soil is different from my grandmother's house. It's more clay. When I was a little girl, we lived in more along the coast, and it's more sandy soil, and roses don't like sandy soil too much unless you fertilise it and look after them. And so we tried to dig a couple out that were small, and we had cuttings of the others, but they didn't take. And it's like, that's what my main thing was. So when I had my rose garden here, I actually I remembered some of the names of the roses that my grandmother used to have, and I tried to find them in the shop and put them in my garden.
It's beautiful, really seeing her legends, kind of legacy, kind of live on. That's lovely. It probably gives you a lot of comfort, right? It provides a lot of comfort.
Oh, it does. I know they help me. Mum's in heaven now as well, but I know that she and my grandmother help me there when I get stuck, spiritually wise. I always call on them to help.
Yeah. So I know, like, as a young person, you went through a lot in school. You had the bullying and you had the anxiety. Tell me a little bit about, what was that like for you as a young person?
I was the first one in my class. Basically, in my family, I'm the oldest, so I was the first person to start school. And I went to a preschool, and you felt you belonged. You could play in the same people played with you, played with toys, and it didn't matter what food you took to this preschool, you felt like you belonged. I felt like I belonged. Then I went to a school close to home, and it was an all-girls school, and everything changed. And I might have been the quietest, I might have been the tallest. You go out in the playground, and I'm of Lebanese heritage, so I bought Lebanese food for lunch, and people would look at you and say, yuck, what's that? I'm not sitting next to you. And they'd walk away. And I sit there and I look down at my food and I'm thinking, but I love this food, it might be Lebanese bread and Vegemite. Now food like that is accepted. When somebody is bullied or made fun of, the teachers and that give you more support as a student. You'd have a seat that students know if you're on your own. It's called a buddy system, and the students would come over and talk to you, where back then in the 1970s it didn't happen, or even in the 80s it didn't happen that way. So I'd go up and say, can I play with you? And they say, no, go away. And it could be the quiet, it could be the tallest. There'd always be a reason, one way or the other. I had my sister come the next year. She's younger. She followed me the next year. And then I decided to sit next to her, and they actually said, oh, what's an older sister to sit next to her for? Go away. So it was a horrible experience, to be honest. And the teachers also didn't think I was clever enough to do electives. I was really good at maths at school. I wasn't good at English at school. Not because I couldn't speak. I wasn't good at comprehension or writing essays. I'd be too logic, where the teachers would want more information on different things. I couldn't expand my work. So I'd get a high mark of 12 out of 20. So I try and do subjects that were more number related, like physics and chemistry. But then the teacher said I wasn't clever enough, and Mum would go up to the school and say, Danny is clever. She's got, she gets top marks in maths. Why can't she do physics and chemistry? And she'd say, like, other students that get less marks than her do these subjects, so why can't she do it? And they just wouldn't give a valid reason. So I chose other subjects at school to get my HSC. But it was a difficult time during the school time. I'd get sick before exams. I'd go physically in the bathroom and get physically sick and then sit for the exams. So, I was glad to. I finished HSC. I finished the final year, and I was glad that was my accomplishment.
Wow. And you've gone on, right? Even with all of that, you have gone on, right? And you've written this beautiful book. So tell me a little bit, how did this story evolve, and what made you write this book? Tell me about that.
Well, at the beginning, as a child, as I mentioned, I had a phobia of dogs. I was walking across the road after getting the local paper with my sister, and a dog came up and bit me in the middle of the road. So I was afraid from, say, medium-sized dogs to large dogs. Then, many, many years later, I actually worked in a community care worker, and I'd work with people that were visually impaired, so they'd have a guide dog, and that was like a Labrador sort of dog. And I'm thinking, okay, I can deal with this, I can cope with that. And then there was another lady that had a German Shepherd as a service dog. So after a while, I get to bond with those dogs. But then Teida, 4 days after my home was broken into, Teida came into my life. And Teida is a cross-staffy red cattle dog. A red cattle dog is an Australian breed of dog, for those who are not aware. And so she was a cross-Staffordshire Terrier red cattle dog, and she needed a home just as much as I needed a home. She came into my home 4 days after my home was broken into, and basically the owner said if she didn't find a home, she may be put down. So Teida and I bonded instantly, and I never had a dog of my own. I never thought I could have a dog of my own. I worked late hours for work. I'd come home late, leave early, and I didn't think it was right for me to leave a dog by itself, but Teida proved me wrong. And she fitted in with me, and she needed a home too, not just because she, as I said just now, she may be put down, but she was also epileptic. So I also learned how to deal with a dog who had a medical ailment, which was epilepsy. And so we just bonded. And after, and a friend of mine who helped Teida adjust while I was away at work, he was a good friend of mine too, a platonic friend. He had a family of his own and that sort of thing, but he also wanted to make sure Teida fitted in and adjusted, so he'd pop in every so often to check on her. And Teida bonded with it was like the Three Musketeers at times. And so I just wanted to share with people how a dog can connect to a human. And it was also a healing process when I was going through some grief of my own. And I just wanted to share with other people what I'd been through, what a dog can do, and maybe help someone else out in the world with my experiences. Yeah. And that's what I wrote it. It took me 8 years to write because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to write a book, didn't know anything. So it took me 8 years to write this book and then publish it. So, yeah. But it was I was glad once I did it.
Yeah, congratulations. It is a beautiful story, and really to hear more about, the backstory about your connection with Teida and the way that she came into your life, and just how healing that relationship has been for you. What do you think stands out? What do you think, as you think about what stands out for you about your connection with Teida and the healing process? What stands out is
Teida was very intuitive. She knew everything about me. I could be upset or down or something. There was a time, for example, I was made redundant at work, and that's another story in itself. But I was made redundant at work, and I came home late. My friend, who's George in the book, picked me up. And this is a little bit in the book. So, and Teida actually came up to me, and, she was worried because I was late. And once I got home, she sniffed my leg, and because I hurt myself, but that's another thing. And she sniffed me and said, "Look, Mum, everything will be all right," because I was in tears. I was upset and said, "What did I do wrong? What happened here? What am I going to, where am I going to go? I've got no job." And she was right at the end of the day. Everything would be okay. Maybe you can spend the rest of your life with me. And in a way, that's what I did, because I didn't work full-time anymore. I worked part-time. And that's when I started to set up my self-employment. And so I did part-time work as well as being a little bit of self-employment work. And that's how we bonded. And, you'd play ball with her, and you could look into her eyes, and she'll tell you, basically if your energy matches a dog's energy, then you bond with them a lot more. But if you're afraid of a dog can pick up on a human's energy. And if you're anxious or afraid or anything, then dogs get anxious and afraid, and sometimes they bark. And you learn their different barks, because it's like when a baby cries, you learn, okay, this cry is for the baby wanting to be fed. This cries because the baby's tired. Dogs have different barks as well. So sometimes it's an insecure bark. Sometimes it's like a protection. Someone's at the door, bark. So you get to learn, once you're in tune with yourself and you're centered with yourself and stay grounded and calm, a dog will stay calm with you, and they'll just do whatever you want them to do.
I'm thinking about your story, because you had that really difficult, traumatic, right? You had a dog attack, right, when you were younger. Yeah. How did you deal with that fear with Teida? How did you overcome that? That's pretty massive.
Well, we had dogs growing up. It was near our home, and when I got home, I went to Mum and I showed her my wound because it sort of just scraped the skin. It didn't bleed, but you could see the skin scrape. And Mum basically, the lady was very remorseful at the end, which was, and so Mum basically told the lady, why did you do this? Why did you let the dog out in the middle of the road and all this sort of stuff? Because it was such a small house that the lady had, and there was no yard, so the lady would open the gate and the dog would just wander around in the street. But we had dogs growing up, and so I was used to smaller dogs. And then we had a Staffy Terrier, Jade, when we grew up, and I think Jade was the one that I was hesitant for a little bit, but, she'd come up and I'd pat her, and you just get to warm up to the dogs based on their energy. She didn't jump up or anything, and she was a white, she was quite placid. Like all the dogs we had growing up were fitted into the family, so I was okay with middle-sized dogs. I was just hesitant having a dog by myself, and I was hesitant of larger-sized dogs, so it's probably from Labradors, Great Danes, those larger dogs. But, but I actually learned it with Teida. It was through my friend George as well, because he actually, which is George in the book, it's through him as well. He helped me adjust to Teida as well. So when Teida came to my place, she just went straight to this red bucket I had filled with water and just drank water, wandered around the yard, made herself at home, and the owner just left, and Teida had no idea. She just fitted in from there.
Oh. Well, you must have really been aligned in your energy. It's, again, just a beautiful story. And you share all this in the book, right? I mean, you share everything that you're talking, you kind of really share this, but it's through Teida's eyes in the book, which is such a cool story.
Oh, thank you. I mean, one funny thing we learned was Teida learned, you call a dog's name, they come to you. With Teida, if you whistle, she came to you as well, but I didn't know that and I didn't have a car when I first had Teida, and so I'd call on George to take her to the vet, and he put her in the back of the car. It's a station wagon, so he put her in the boot part of the car, and we took her to the vet, and we came home, and when she came back, he'd whistle a tune, and she'd jump from the boot into the middle of the car right into his lap. And it's like, what are you doing here? What the hell are you doing here, Teida? And it's like, it's only because you whistled. So, I didn't say, don't whistle, don't whistle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me, you've written this beautiful story. You've suffered a lot of grief and loss yourself. If you were to kind of help a listener, right, that's really maybe struggling with the loss of a loved one or loss of a pet, or how might you coach somebody or help somebody through that?
What helped me a lot is knowing that they're still around you, but in a different way. They're not physically there, so it's not like you can hear their voice or hear their bark. It took me a month to figure out to vacuum my house because Teida had hair on the floor. And it's like, but I'm going to take her away. And it's like, well, if I take a little bit of her hair and just keep it, then that's okay. I'll create a little sanctuary, part of my room. I have a little corner that I call Teida's Corner, where I've got her ashes. When she passed away, it was on New Year's Eve, and I actually had her put down in the house. And so the vet put her down, and then I had the animal crematorium come and pick her up, and then I had a little wake for her at the end. So you kind of do something maybe little memories and things. And then I learned that Teida's around me, and even my loved ones are around me. So it's like air. If you breathe, you can breathe air and you can feel air, but you can't see air. And if you believe that a loved one is like you, like air is around you, then they're around you. And it's okay for someone else not to believe that, but if you believe that, then keep believing that and keep knowing that. And that's how I feel with them. And I know they get through, there are hard times, like it might be their first birthday or the first Christmas without somebody, And it's okay to get emotional. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, look, I miss Mum. I mean, Mum's died, 8 years now, and Teida's nearly 8 years, and it's like, it's okay, to say, look, I still miss them, because an animal is like family. They are family. So it's losing a family member, but just in a different form, I haven't got children, but I had Teida.
No, I totally, I mean, we have pets, and I've worked with clients that have lost a pet and friends that have lost a beloved animal, and it's absolutely devastating. It just is devastating for people. So yeah, I hear you. It's a huge loss.
Yeah, I was in a program during my grief and loss time. I was invited to go on a ABC documentary called Psychics in the Suburbs, and you can see me in one of my darker times there. And compared to then to now, I'm totally different, and I'm more upbeat, and I'm happy, and things like that. But it was like sometimes you go into get validation from, and I don't like to say psychic medium, but just somebody out there to say, look, she's around you, or just give you reassurance that the signs and symbols you get from the spirit world, because everybody's different. I might say, I might, for example, feel something across the top of my head, like someone scratching your head, and know that that's, say, someone from spirit, and you might get someone striking your face. So everybody has different, but it's still the same message. Or someone might find a feather on the floor, and someone else might find a coin. But they're signs from spirit to say, look, I'm here, I'm around you, talk to me, and open yourself up. Some people close themselves up for, oh, no, they've left me. And there's a lot of guilt. So, because sometimes too what happens when someone passes away is that you didn't see them when they passed away, or, there's a lot of, you might have had an argument or walked away, or they're in hospital and you couldn't make it to see them, or things like that. So, but you don't want to feel guilty. They understand what happens with us, and so that helps a lot as well with the grief and loss process.
Yeah,
just someone beside you helps a lot too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you talk about being in some really dark times. As I sit with you today, I just feel a lot of kind of light and love and joy, and so you've had quite a transformation, haven't you?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like writing Teida's story was like a healing process, because I just want people to know that, I mean, it's not just about grief and loss, but it's about the bond with an animal. And if you haven't got a human to help you, because a lot of people may think, okay, I know, my family wouldn't talk I can't talk to my family about this. Animals are not judgmental. They accept you, and they can just listen, and all you do is pat. And I used to cry on Teida's a lot, when things happen, and she just sat there, and it was just like someone wiping your face, and then you'd go out and play ball, and just say, but Mum, I need you, I'm here, I understand, it's okay, and she went through her own grief. When George, when we both had grief, she went through her own grief, because she used to sit in front of the lounge when George was here, and then he wasn't here anymore, and she knew the last time she would see him, and I won't reveal too much because it's in the book, but it was the last time she would see him, she was there. And then she had her own grief, and she was licking her wound, she was licking her leg as part of an anxiety. And I thought, I'm not going to take you to the vet. I know how to deal with you. So I just put a bucket around your head and play with you and, understand, because I thought, I'm going to the same as you are, so we've got to do it together. A lot of people will pat their animals, because that's another thing. A lot of people, when an animal's sad or an animal does wrong, they pat them. And patting an animal is reassuring the animal that you want that behaviour. Where if you tell the animal, look, let's play this, or let's do something, look, you reward an animal for good behaviour, not for sad or behaviour you don't want them to have. So if they're licking a wound, patting them tells them, oh, I want you to lick that wound more. that's a good thing, where you want the wound to heal. So therefore, let's not lick the wound. I'm not going to punish you. Let's put a little collar around you. Let's play with you. Let's try and help this wound heal so you can actually not lick it anymore, not have this anxious moment anymore.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So really in tune, right? You knew she was anxious, you knew she was struggling, and you really were in tune with what she needed.
Yeah, and like any pet owner can do that. If sometimes people are about ego, oh no, I want my animal to do this, I want my animal to do that. It's like, but go to the animal's level and see what they're wanting. If an animal's digging a hole in your garden, for example, they're bored, they need something to do, give them a job. You're outside, or you can, if you go down and look up on the animal, they can't see as high as you, they can only see to their level. So give them something on their level that they can do, and then they'll actually be occupied and not dig up your garden. Or give them a little bit that they can dig up and make their own little house. I had a part in my garden where I'd let Teida have, she wouldn't dig it as a digging for a bone, but she'd make a big mound out of it, and she'd just sit there to cool off. And it's like, hey, you needed to cool off, I'll let you have this bit, doesn't matter, you know. You like it, it's fine, you know.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful intelligence, right? And then again, this attunement, right? You're so attuned to her, and she was so attuned to you. Yeah. So I'm just curious, as we kind of talk through this a minute, I am curious about, you know, how are you? What's coming up? What are you feeling right now? I'm curious. I just want to check in and make sure that you're okay.
I'm good. I'm happy. Everything's well. I haven't. One day I'll get another animal, a pet. As a young thing, as a young child with animals, I'd had a fish-faced parrot who I tamed, and it used to sit on my shoulder and used to play with me and everything, and even used to eat my homework. He'd have stencil pieces of paper for homework and used to eat it all around the edges and things like that. And even a friend of mine said, look, can you look after my blue-tongued lizard? He had to go away for a bit with his family, and then I tamed it. So I don't know how I tamed it, but it came a bit more tamer than when I first got it to when it left me. So I do like animals, and I will one day get another dog. There's just been a few hiccups in the meantime that has prevented that. So, you know, when divine timing comes, and I know Teida will send me the right dog when she sees it for me. So that's how I see spirit. And, you know, I'm writing another book. It was professionally edited. So now I'm actually the manuscript. So now I'm actually working through that. And restructuring it and working on it. It's not going to take as long as this one to write. But and the other reason why it took 8 years, it wasn't just because of me writing. I just didn't know how to get it to a publisher. I didn't know. And with writing a book, you can actually, you know, there's past tenses here, there's present tenses there. It was jumpy. So if you're conscious of that, even spelling errors. If you're conscious of those things as you're writing your book, and it doesn't have to be a book, it can be just a small poem, it could be anything. So, you know, you could get, say, for example, your family members, you know, your grandma, people from the generation above you to write their memories, create it into a little book and give it to your family, or a book of recipes, or a book of poems, or things like that. So anybody there can write if they want to write. It doesn't have to be a long book out there and be famous. You don't have to be anything like that. You just write, if you want to just write a couple of lines about what it was like when you came out to Australia from another country, do that and share it with your family, because they don't know what it was like. So yeah, that's what I like to spur on with people. But, you know, I'm writing another one. I try and write in different, I suppose you call it competitions, I guess, but on different platforms. Different blogs, get people to know about me, because I also like to do authors' talks. So I also like to be guest speaker and share my personal experience out there to others. So I've done school authors' talks for schools, guest speaker for things like Rotary or Probus or things like that. And I also do spiritual guidance, readings, things like that for people. So I'm open to that. Reiki is another thing. I do a bit of spiritual healing. So I do Reiki is, for those who don't know what Reiki is in your audience, Reiki is when someone needs a different type of healing, and I'm the conduit between the spirit world and the human world, and I give that healing from them to you. And I may give you a little message from them at the same time as well, depending on what you're after.
Yeah. Reiki is amazing. Just such a powerful kind of somatic healing tool. I really do encourage people, if they haven't tried Reiki, to find a practitioner and try it, because big energy shifts in the body. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure.
You can do Reiki from distance as well, so it doesn't have to be physical being. It could be distant Reiki or distant readings, because some people think, oh, but you're in Australia and I'm over here, or it's too far to get you, even if you're in the same country. It's like, but now with internet, now with Zoom, like you and I are talking, you can talk to anywhere in the world, and anybody can do anything anywhere in the world now. So it's such a great thing to do.
I love that. I love that spirit. And you really do, again, as I sit with you, you really do have a connection, right? I can just feel that kind of this
thank you, Kate.
Warmth and this kind of intuitive kind of energy from you, which is lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
So as we begin to wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to share today? Anything else you want to kind of share with listeners? Anything else you want to add?
Well, with my book, Teida Story, it's available hopefully in your bookstores or online.
Mm-hmm.
It's through my publisher, New Holland Publishers, so someone can contact them if they'd like to get a copy. Unfortunately, they have it in hard copy, only not Kindle or ebooks or anything like that. But I know future-wise that I want to get it into both. I did want it in both forms, but they could only do it in the hard copy form at this stage. So, yes, I'm on social media for anyone that can find me, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it, I'm there. So I'm sure you can find me somewhere and ask questions, or if there's anything that someone else wants to ask me that I didn't cover here, feel free afterwards to do so.
Awesome. And I'll definitely put all those links to the show notes, especially the link to the book. So I actually do have one more question. So I asked everybody, each guest, I asked the same question. If you had one piece of sage advice about living intentionally to share with listeners today, what would you share? So a piece of advice about living intentionally, what would that be?
Do what's in your heart. Feel what's in your heart and go for it, not what's in your head. If you want to be an astronaut, if you want to be something out there and people say, oh no, that's impossible, you can't do it, you haven't got the marks, you haven't got this. It may take you longer, but follow your heart and believe in yourself. You know yourself best, and just keep going and go with the flow. When something worries you, just go with the flow and try not to get your head all tied up in knots over it.
Yeah,
I just feel a lot. I get stuck. So if you need to use something like journaling to help you through things, then do it.
Yeah,
but just follow your heart and trust yourself.
I love that. That kind of following your heart. Such powerful advice. So thank you. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you. And again, I will put all that good stuff in the show notes. I really appreciate your time today. And I do encourage everybody to pick up Teida's story. It's really a heartfelt, beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And if thank you. And anyone who does read it, put a review up somewhere, whether it's Google Reads or Amazon or somewhere that you bought it from. Let other people know.
Yeah,
it's a great tool, so use that.
Yeah, those reviews are really helpful. So anybody supporting authors out there, those reviews do matter. So yeah, jump on. Just could be a couple of sentences. It doesn't have to be too much. So thank you so much, Danielle. It's been a pleasure to connect, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Kate, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.